Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished repairing the air filter in Section 7 of the U's Harmony. The diplomatic vessel had been his home for 3 years now, and he knew every bolt and wire in the engineering sections. His toolkit sat beside him on the metal floor, its familiar weight and contents bringing him comfort during the long shifts between star systems. The year was 2387, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years. Jake had heard stories from his father about the early days when first contact was made. Back then, everyone thought aliens would be just like humans with different faces. They were wrong about many things. The ship's communication system crackled. To life. All crew to stations. We have incoming ships from the Zephyrian Empire. This is not a drill. Jake quickly packed his tools back into their worn leather case. The hammer went into its slot next to the screwdrivers. The pliers fit snugly. Beside the wire cutters. Everything had its place, just like his grandfather had taught him back on Earth. A good craftsman always knew where his tools were. He made his way to the main deck, where Captain Lisa Grant was studying the view screen. 3 massive Zephyrian warships hung in space like dark metal sharks. Their hulls were covered in spikes and weapon ports, nothing like the smooth curves of human vessels. "They're requesting permission to board," said Lieutenant Amy Parker from her post at Communications. "Standard diplomatic protocol." Jake had met Zephyrians before. They were tall, with gray skin and 4 arms, and they seemed to enjoy showing off their strength. Their culture valued warriors above all else, and they looked down on humans as weak newcomers to the galaxy. Most other alien species respected humans for their technical skills, but the Zephyrians saw only soft creatures who hid behind machines. "Permission granted?" Captain Grant replied. "Tell them we welcome their inspection." Within an hour, the Zephyrian delegation had boarded the Harmony. Their leader, Commander Vextal, stood nearly 8 feet tall with scars covering his arms. His 3 subordinates flanked him like bodyguards, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. "We come to ensure your vessel meets Council safety standards," Vextal announced in heavily accented English. "Your species has a reputation for creative interpretations of regulations." Jake bristled at the insult but kept quiet. Diplomacy was not his job. The inspection began in the command center and worked its way through the ship. The Zephyrians examined every system with professional efficiency. Their technology was different from human designs, but Jake had to admit they knew what they were looking for. Lieutenant Parker guided the group through the corridors, explaining each section's purpose. The aliens seemed particularly interested in the weapon storage areas, though they found nothing unusual. Human diplomatic ships carried only basic defensive systems. Nothing that would threaten a Zephyrian warship. They were heading toward the engineering section when one of the subordinates, a scarred warrior named Kilthan, stopped suddenly. His 4 nostrils flared as he tested the air. "What is that scent?" he demanded. Parker looked confused. "I'm sorry, what scent?" "Metal, oil, something else." Kilthan's eyes narrowed. "Something dangerous." Jake realized the alien was picking up the smell from his toolkit. Zephyrians had enhanced senses much better than humans. What seemed like nothing to him might be overwhelming to an alien nose. "That's probably just the maintenance equipment," Parker said carefully. "Our engineers use various tools and lubricants." "Show us," Vextal commanded. They followed Parker to the engineering bay where Jake had been working earlier. His toolkit still sat on the workbench where he had left it. The worn leather case looked harmless among the high-tech equipment surrounding it. Kal single quotes, then approached the case slowly, his hand resting on the weapon at his side. "This container, what does it hold?" "Just tools," Jake said, stepping forward. "Basic maintenance equipment." The alien's eyes widened with suspicion. "Open it." Jake shrugged and unlatched the case. Inside, his tools lay in perfect order. The hammer with its steel head and wooden handle, 3 screwdrivers of different sizes, a pair of pliers, wire cutters, a small torch for heating metal, a set of wrenches, a sharp knife for cutting rope, and plastic. Everything a good engineer needed for basic repairs. Kilthan stared at the contents for a long moment. Then his breathing became rapid and shallow. His skin changed color, turning a darker shade of gray. "By the sacred fires," he whispered, "what manner of weapons are these?" "Weapons?" Jake laughed. "These aren't weapons. They're just tools." But Kilthin was already backing away from the case. "Commander, you must see this. The humans carry instruments of death disguised as innocent objects." Vextal approached cautiously. When he saw the toolkit's contents, his forearms tensed. "Explain these items, human." Jake picked up the hammer. "This is for hitting things. When metal gets bent, I use it to pound it back into shape." Both aliens flinched as if he had drawn a sword. "You use it to crush and destroy?" Vextal said. "A kinetic impact weapon designed to shatter bones and armor." "No, it's just a hammer," Jake protested. He reached for the screwdriver. "And this is for turning screws. To fasten things together." Kilthin made a sound like a wounded animal. "A precision penetration device. Look at the pointed tip. See how it narrows to pierce armor and flesh." Jake stared at the simple screwdriver in his hand. It was just a tool his grandfather had given him, worn smooth by decades of honest work. "You're seeing things that aren't there. This is for fixing machines, not hurting people." "The cutting implements," Vextal said, pointing at the wire cutters and knife, "designed to sever limbs and slice through protective barriers." "They're for cutting wire and rope," Jake said desperately. "Every engineer needs them." "And this flame projector," Kilthin added, indicating the small torch. "A weapon to burn and torture." "It's for heating metal so I can bend it," Jake explained. "Sometimes you need to warm up a piece before you can work with it." The two aliens exchanged glances. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Then Vextal spoke in a voice filled with new respect and fear. "We have underestimated your species, human. This collection represents the most sophisticated arsenal we have ever encountered. Each item appears innocent, even primitive, yet serves as a deadly weapon hidden in plain sight." "But they're not weapons," Jake insisted. "They're tools." "I use them to fix things, not break them. Your deception is masterful," Kilthin said. "To disguise implements of war as simple maintenance equipment. No wonder your species has survived so long despite your apparent physical weakness." Lieutenant Parker stepped forward. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. These really are just common tools that humans use for everyday tasks." "Common tools?" Vextal's voice rose in alarm. "You mean every human carries such an arsenal?" "Well, not everyone," Parker said. "But most mechanics and engineers have basic toolkits." The aliens looked at each other with growing horror. If humans considered these deadly weapons to be basic equipment, what did their actual weapons look like? "We must report this immediately," Kilthin said. "The Council must know what the humans are hiding." "Hiding?" Jake stood up, his patience finally exhausted. "We're not hiding anything. These tools have been in our reports for 30 years. We've never made any secret of them." "Because you knew we would not recognize their true nature," Vextal said. "A brilliant strategy. Hide your weapons where we would never think to look." Jake opened his mouth to argue further, but Captain Grant's voice cut through the tension. "I think we should take a break from this inspection," she said diplomatically. "Perhaps we can continue later after everyone has had time to think." But Jake could see in the aliens' eyes that the damage was done. They had looked at his simple tools and seen weapons of mass destruction. They had seen his grandfather's hammer and grandfather's screwdriver and grandfather's knife, and they had seen instruments of war. The inspection was over, but Jake had a feeling that much bigger problems were just beginning. The emergency session at Harmony Point Station began 3 days after the inspection incident. Jake Morrison sat at a long table facing 12 alien representatives from different species across the galaxy. The station's main conference room had been designed to accommodate various alien forms, with specialized seating and atmosphere controls for each delegation. Captain Lisa Grant led the human team, but Jake found himself at the center of attention. His simple toolkit sat on the table before him, each tool carefully arranged for examination. The leather case looked small and worn compared to the advanced holographic displays surrounding it. Prosecutor Velanara of the Crystalline Hegemony stood at the front of the room. Her body was made of living crystal that reflected the room's lights in rainbow patterns. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We gather today to address a serious threat to galactic peace," she began. "The human delegation has brought weapons of war disguised as innocent tools. These items violate 17 different sections of the Galactic Weapons Treaty." Jake wanted to protest, but Captain Grant placed a hand on his arm. "Let them speak first," she whispered. "We'll get our chance." Velinara activated a holographic projector. A three-dimensional image of Jake's hammer appeared above the table, rotating slowly. The image was 10 times larger than the actual tool, making it look menacing. "This kinetic impact device," Velinara continued, "is designed to crush and destroy. The heavy metal head can shatter the crystal formations that house our consciousness. The handle provides leverage for maximum destructive force." Jake stared at the projection of his grandfather's hammer. The worn wooden handle showed decades of honest work. The steel head had small dents from thousands of repairs. It was the same tool he had used to fix broken machinery across 3 star systems. "That's not what it's for," he said quietly. "The evidence speaks for itself," Velinara replied. She changed the projection to show the screwdriver. "This precision penetration weapon features a hardened tip designed to pierce armor and flesh. The various sizes allow for different levels of damage." Ambassador Zikmore from the Gaseous Collective spoke from his containment suit. His voice came through electronic speakers that made him sound like he was underwater. "The flame projector is particularly disturbing. Our people exist as organized gas clouds. This device could scatter our molecular bonds, causing death through dispersion." Jake had used that same torch to heat bent metal pipes just last week. The small flame was barely hot enough to warm steel, let alone harm a living being. Defense attorney Don Rodriguez stood up. He was a thin man with gray hair who specialized in interspecies law. "Your Honors, I believe we have a serious misunderstanding here. These items are common tools used throughout human space for maintenance and repair." "Common tools?" The question came from Queen Vexara of the insectoid hive, her compound eyes focused on the toolkit with obvious fear. "You admit that all humans carry such arsenals?" "Not arsenals," Rodriguez said. "Tools. Let me demonstrate their actual purpose." He picked up the hammer and approached a damaged section of the conference table. The metal edge had been bent during station construction. Rodriguez used the hammer to gently tap the metal back into shape. The alien delegates recoiled as if he had drawn a weapon. Several reached for their own defensive equipment. The Zephyrian representative, Commander Vextal, stood with all 4 arms ready for combat. "You see?" Rodriguez said, confused by their reaction. "It's just for fixing things." "He demonstrates the crushing force," whispered Velinara. "Notice how easily the metal yields to the impact weapon." Rodriguez picked up the screwdriver and found a loose screw in the table's base. He began turning it clockwise, tightening the connection. The simple action caused more alarm among the observers. "The penetration technique," said Zikmore. "See how the pointed tip enters the material and applies rotational force. A skilled user could pierce vital organs." "It's just tightening a screw," Rodriguez protested. "This is basic maintenance work." But his words seemed to make things worse. The aliens saw his casual handling of the tools as evidence of human expertise with weapons. Every simple action looked like a combat demonstration to their fearful eyes. Queen Vexara's antennae twitched with agitation. "The cutting implements are perhaps most disturbing. Our exoskeletons could be severed by these blade weapons." Jake watched Rodriguez pick up the wire cutters. The lawyer cut through a piece of electrical wire to show the tool's purpose. The clean snip made several aliens flinch. "This is for cutting wire and small cables," Rodriguez explained. "Every electrical repair requires this kind of precision cutting." "Precision dismemberment," Velinara translated. "The humans have perfected the art of selective amputation." Dr. Helen Murphy, the expedition's scientist, requested permission to speak. She was a small woman with kind eyes who had spent her career studying alien cultures. "If I may address the tribunal," she said, I think the confusion arises from different evolutionary paths. Most species in the galaxy developed natural weapons. Claws, venom, armor, psychic abilities, humans evolved differently. She activated her own holographic display, showing images of early human development. Our ancestors were physically weak compared to other predators. We had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. Instead, we learned to modify our environment using tools. The display showed primitive humans using stones to break nuts, sticks to dig for roots, and fire to cook food. These adaptations allowed us to survive despite our physical limitations. Tool use became central to human development. You admit that humans evolved as weapon users, Vextel said. Not weapons, Dr. Murphy corrected. Tools, there's a fundamental difference. We use implements to solve problems, not to create them. But the aliens seemed unable to understand this distinction. To them, anything that could be used to harm was a weapon. Regardless of its intended purpose, Elder Historian Quindle of the Archive Keepers spoke for the first time. His ancient voice carried the weight of millennia. We have discovered similar tool marks on ruins throughout the galaxy. Previous civilizations that used such implements have vanished without explanation. The room fell silent. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Were they suggesting that humans were connected to some ancient galactic threat? The pattern is consistent, Quindle continued. Advanced civilizations that relied on disguised weapons eventually disappeared. We believe they were eliminated by other species who discovered their true nature. That's ridiculous, Captain Grant said. Humans have been peaceful members of the galactic community for 30 years. 30 years is nothing, replied Velinara. The previous tool-using species maintained peaceful facades for centuries before revealing their true intentions. Jake stood up, his patience finally exhausted. These aren't weapons. They're just tools. I've spent my whole life using them to fix things, to build things, to help people. Your emotional display is noted, Velinara said coldly. But evidence cannot be dismissed through passion. Commander Vextal stepped forward. I observed this human's efficiency with these implements. His casual expertise suggests extensive training in their use. No warrior in our military displays such familiarity with weapons. Because they're not weapons, Jake shouted. They're tools. My grandfather taught me to use them. His grandfather taught him. It's a family tradition going back generations. Generations of weapon training, Vextal interpreted. Your species has been preparing for galactic conquest for centuries. The session continued for hours. Every explanation the humans offered was twisted into evidence of their hidden agenda. Jake's simple tools became proof of an elaborate conspiracy. Spanning human history. As the day ended, Jake sat alone in his temporary quarters aboard the station. Through the viewport he could see the Harmony floating in space, surrounded by alien warships. His toolkit sat on the small table, looking harmless and familiar. Tomorrow would bring the final verdict. The fate of humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance, all because of a few simple tools that had been passed down through generations of his family. Jake picked up his grandfather's hammer and felt its comfortable weight. He wondered what the old man would think about aliens being afraid of his everyday tools. Probably he would laugh and get back to work, just like always. But laughing seemed impossible now. The gulf between human and alien understanding appeared too wide to cross, and Jake feared that his simple toolkit might cost humanity everything they had worked to achieve among the stars. The final day of the tribunal began with grim news. Captain Lisa Grant had received reports that several alien species were calling for immediate quarantine of all human space. The crystalline hegemony had already closed their borders to human ships, and the gaseous collective was demanding emergency votes in the Galactic Council. Jake Morrison stood before the assembled delegates, his toolkit spread out on the demonstration table. The conference room felt smaller today, with additional security forces from 3 different species watching his every move. The tension was so thick he could almost taste it. Before we proceed with the final judgment, Captain Grant announced, we request permission to demonstrate the actual purpose of these tools. We believe a practical demonstration will resolve this misunderstanding. Prosecutor Velinara's crystal body flashed with skeptical colors. The human delegation has already shown us their weapon techniques. What more is there to see? Not weapons, Grant insisted. Tools. Let Engineer Morrison show you how these implements are really used. Elder Historian Quendall nodded slowly. The archive keepers agree? Let us observe this demonstration, but with appropriate safety measures. Additional force fields were activated around the demonstration area. Medical teams from multiple species stood ready. Several alien observers moved to what they considered safe distances. Jake felt like he was about to perform surgery instead of basic maintenance work. The station's maintenance chief, a human named Pete Collins, had prepared a broken environmental system for the demonstration. The unit sat on the table, its cover removed to show the damaged components inside. Coolant had leaked from a cracked pipe, and several electrical connections had come loose. This is a typical repair job, Jake explained as he opened his toolkit. The kind of work I do every day aboard the Harmony. He picked up a wrench and began removing the damaged pipe section. The simple action caused several aliens to flinch. Commander Vextal's forearms tensed as if preparing for battle. First, I removed the broken part, Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm. The wrench lets me grip the pipe fittings and turn them. Observe the crushing technique, whispered Queen Vexara. The metal yields under the applied pressure. Jake tried to ignore the commentary. He unscrewed the damaged pipe and set it aside, then picked up a replacement from Pete's supply kit. The new pipe was slightly too long and would need to be cut to fit properly. Now I need to cut this to the right length, Jake said, measuring the pipe against the existing connections. He marked the cutting point with a small piece of chalk, then picked up his hacksaw. The moment the blade touched the metal, half the alien delegates moved back even further. The sound of the saw cutting through the pipe made the gaseous collective's representative retreat to the opposite side of the room. The precision blade work, Zeekmer's electronic voice crackled. See how cleanly it severs the material. Jake completed the cut and used a file to smooth the rough edges. Each stroke of the file was analyzed by the watching aliens as evidence of human expertise with bladed weapons. He could see fear growing in their eyes as he worked. This is just finishing work, he explained. I'm making the cut smooth so it won't leak, but his words seemed to make things worse. The aliens saw his casual skill as proof of extensive training. Every smooth motion looked like the work of a professional warrior rather than a simple engineer. Jake installed the new pipe section and began tightening the connections. The wrench made small clicking sounds as he worked, each click making the observers more nervous. When he picked up the torch to heat a stubborn fitting, several aliens actually left the room. The flame weapon, Velinara announced, deployed with casual efficiency. It's just to warm the metal, Jake said desperately. Heat makes it expand so I can remove the old seal. The small blue flame looked harmless to Jake, but the aliens saw it as a precision instrument of destruction. When he used it to heat the fitting, they watched as if he were demonstrating advanced torture techniques. With the pipe repaired, Jake moved to the electrical connections. Several wires had come loose from their terminals, and the insulation was cracked in places. He picked up his wire strippers and began working on the damaged cables. The wire preparation technique, Commander Vextal observed. Note the precision with which he exposes the conducting material. Jake stripped the insulation from the wire ends and twisted them together. Then he used electrical tape to secure the connections and prevent short circuits. Every simple action was interpreted as evidence of human combat expertise. This is basic electrical work, he said. Every human child learns these skills in school. Every human child, repeated Queen Vexara with horror. They train their young in weapon mastery from an early age. Jake felt his frustration building. Nothing he said or did seemed to convince them that his tools were innocent. Every explanation was twisted into evidence of human deception. Dr. Helen Murphy stepped forward. If I may provide some context, she said. What you're witnessing is human problem-solving behavior. When faced with a challenge, humans instinctively look for ways to overcome it using available resources. She activated a holographic display showing human development throughout history. Our ancestors survived ice ages, natural disasters, and resource shortages by adapting their tools to meet changing needs. This flexibility became central to human culture. The display showed primitive humans using the same basic tools for multiple purposes. A stone could be used to crack nuts, shape wood, or defend against predators. A stick could dig for roots, extend reach, or provide support while walking. Multi-purpose adaptation, Velinara said. Each tool serves multiple combat functions. Not combat, Dr. Murphy corrected. Survival? Humans learn to see potential in everything around them. We don't view objects as having single purposes. Jake picked up a screwdriver to demonstrate. This can turn screws, but I've also used it to pry open stuck panels, mark measurements, and even stir paint. It's about solving problems with what you have. The aliens watched in fascination and fear as Jake showed different ways to use the simple tool. To them, his creativity looked like tactical versatility. They saw a warrior who could adapt any object into a weapon. The psychological warfare aspect, Commander Vextel said with grudging respect. By appearing to use primitive tools, humans conceal their true capabilities. There's no concealment, Jake insisted. This is just how we think. When something breaks, we fix it. When we need to build something, we find a way to do it. Pete Collins brought over a more complex repair challenge. A section of the station's air recycling system had failed, and replacement parts wouldn't arrive for days. The problem required creative solutions using only available materials. Jake studied the broken system for a moment, then began combining tools in unexpected ways. He used wire and pliers to create a makeshift spring, employed a screwdriver as a lever, and fashioned a temporary seal using rubber gaskets and metal clips. The watching aliens grew increasingly disturbed as Jake improvised solutions. His ability to adapt tools for unintended purposes looked like advanced tactical thinking to their minds. The true horror, Elder Quindel said quietly, is not the tools themselves, but the mind that wields them. This human sees solutions where others see only problems. Jake completed the repair in 20 minutes, creating a working system from damaged parts and basic tools. The air recycler hummed back to life, providing fresh atmosphere for the station's inhabitants. This is what humans do, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. We fix things. We build things. We find ways to make life better. But the aliens' reaction was not relief or understanding, it was deeper fear. They realized that Jake's demonstration had revealed something far more threatening than weapons. The human mind, Velinara said slowly, transforms any resource into a solution. This adaptability makes them unpredictable and therefore dangerous. Commander Vextel stepped forward, his warrior instincts finally comprehending what they were facing. This is not about tools at all. It is about a species that refuses to accept limitations. The demonstration was over, but Jake could see in their eyes that he had only made things worse. By showing his problem-solving abilities, he had proven that humans were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The silence in the conference room stretched for several minutes after Jake's demonstration. The alien delegates sat frozen in their seats, processing what they had witnessed. Commander Vextel's scarred face showed something Jake had never seen. From a Zephyrian before, genuine fear mixed with respect. Captain Lisa Grant stood to address the tribunal. But before she could speak, a new voice filled the room. It was ancient and deep, carrying the weight of countless years. I request permission to address this assembly. All eyes turned to Elder Zexamore of the Ancient Observers. The old being had remained silent throughout the proceedings, watching everything with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. His species was older than any other in the galaxy, and their words carried special authority. The Ancient Observers have been monitoring humanity since their first ventures beyond their homeworld. Zexamore began, his voice like distant thunder. We have watched them spread across the stars, and we have seen something that troubles us greatly. Jake felt his heart sink. Even the eldest species in the galaxy was going to condemn humanity. What troubles us, Zexamore continued, is not what humans do, but how the rest of the galaxy has failed to understand what they represent. The room stirred with confusion. Prosecutor Velinara's crystal body flickered with uncertain colors. Humans did not evolve like the rest of us, the elder explained. The Zephyrians developed strength and warrior culture. The crystalline hegemony evolved computational minds. The gaseous collective became masters of distributed consciousness. Each species found their specialized path to survival. Dr. Helen Murphy nodded eagerly. That's exactly what I've been trying to explain. But humans, Zexamore said, his ancient eyes focusing on Jake, humans evolved something far more dangerous than strength or intelligence or any specialized ability. They evolved adaptability. The word hung in the air like a weapon itself. Every other species in this room has limitations built into their very nature, the elder continued. Zephyrians excel at warfare but struggle with delicate work. Crystalline beings can process vast amounts of data but are vulnerable to physical damage. Each of us has strengths and weaknesses that define our capabilities. Commander Vextal shifted uncomfortably. This is true. Our culture values direct confrontation, but we struggle with subtle approaches. Humans have no such limitations, Zexamore said. When faced with a problem, they do not accept that it cannot be solved. They simply find a different approach. Jake remembered his grandfather's favorite saying, "There's always a way." You just have to keep looking until you find it. Security Chief Pete Johnson, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Permission to share some historical context, sir? Captain Grant nodded, and Pete activated a display showing images from human colony worlds. Kepler 442b was supposed to be uninhabitable, Pete began. The atmosphere was too thin, the soil too acidic, the weather too harsh. The other species said colonization was impossible. The display showed the first human settlement, small domes connected by covered walkways, struggling against constant dust storms. But humans didn't accept impossible, Pete continued. They dug underground cities. They bred new crops that could grow in acidic soil. They captured moisture from the storms that were supposed to kill them. The images changed to show the colony 5 years later. Green fields stretched across the landscape. The underground cities had expanded into vast networks. Children played in parks that shouldn't have existed. Ross 128b was too cold, Pete said, showing another world. Surface temperature averaged -40 degrees. The atmospheric pressure was too low for normal equipment. Again, the images showed human ingenuity at work. Geothermal power stations tapped the planet's core heat. Pressurized habitats were carved into mountainsides. Humans learned to thrive in conditions that would kill most other species. Volf 1061c had gravity 3 times Earth normal, Pete continued. The other species said human bones would break, that our hearts couldn't pump blood effectively. The display showed humans in powered exoskeletons, working in heavy gravity conditions. They had adapted their bodies with medical technology and their environment with engineering solutions. Humans don't see obstacles, Dr. Murphy added. They see engineering challenges. They don't see impossible conditions. They see problems that need creative solutions. Queen Vexara's antennae twitched nervously. You describe a species that cannot be contained or controlled. Cannot be defeated, Commander Vextal said quietly. A Zephyrian warrior faces death, with honor when outmatched, but humans would simply find a different way to fight. Jake picked up his grandfather's hammer. This isn't about fighting, it's about building. My grandfather used this hammer to build houses on New Terra. When the standard foundation designs failed in the unstable soil, he invented new ones. When the roof supports couldn't handle the wind, he figured out better bracing. The same adaptability. That builds can destroy, Velinara pointed out. A mind that sees solutions everywhere is a mind that could overcome any defense, Elder Zexamore nodded slowly. This is why previous tool-using species disappeared. Not because they were eliminated by others, but because they transcended the need for the galactic community. They found ways to solve problems that the rest of us could not even imagine. The revelation hit the room like a shockwave. The ancient civilizations hadn't been destroyed. They had simply moved beyond the limitations that bound other species. Ancient observers have seen this pattern before, Zexamore continued. Species that develop universal adaptability eventually find solutions to aging, death, resource limitations, even the physical laws that govern reality. They don't vanish through conquest. They evolve beyond the need for physical existence. Jake felt dizzy. Was the elder suggesting that humans might eventually transcend physical reality itself? Dr. Murphy's face was pale. Are you saying humans will abandon the galaxy? I am saying that humans represent a force of change that cannot be stopped or controlled, Zexamore replied. The question before this tribunal is not whether humans are dangerous. They are. The question is whether the galaxy will benefit from their presence or be left behind by their advancement. Commander Vextel stood slowly. In Zephyrian culture we have a saying, strength respects strength. I have seen this human strength. It is not in his muscles or his weapons. It is in his refusal to accept defeat. He walked over to Jake's toolkit and picked up the small torch. This device could burn flesh? Yes. But I watched him use it to repair what was broken. The hammer could crush bones, but he used it to fix bent metal. The Zephyrian commander's forearms gestured toward the other delegates. We see weapons because we fear what we cannot understand. But perhaps we fear the wrong thing. Queen Vexara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. You suggest we fear human adaptability rather than human aggression? I suggest, Vextel replied, that we consider whether we want to be their allies or be left behind when they solve problems we cannot even comprehend. Elder Zexamore's ancient voice filled the room one final time. The choice before the galactic community is simple. Embrace human adaptability and learn from it or watch from the sidelines as they reshape reality itself. Jake looked around the room at the alien faces. Some showed fear, others curiosity, but all showed a new understanding of what humanity represented. We don't want to leave anyone behind, Jake said quietly. That's not who we are. We want to build things together, fix problems together, make life better for everyone. He held up his grandfather's hammer one more time. This is just a tool. But the mind that uses it, the human mind that sees solutions everywhere, that's the real gift we bring to the galaxy. The tribunal would vote tomorrow, but Jake could see that something fundamental had changed. The aliens were no longer afraid of human weapons. They were afraid of being left behind by human progress, and maybe, just maybe, that fear would bring them together instead of driving them apart. The final voting session began at dawn, station time. Jake Morrison sat with the human delegation, his toolkit once again displayed on the conference table. But the atmosphere had changed completely from the first day. The alien delegates know. Longer looked at his tools with fear, but with something closer to curiosity and respect. Ambassador Rachel Stone had arrived during the night to represent Earth's government in the final proceedings. She was a veteran diplomat who had helped negotiate humanity's original membership in the Galactic Council 30 years earlier. Before we proceed with the vote, Ambassador Stone announced, humanity would like to propose a new framework for galactic cooperation. Prosecutor Velanara's crystal body flickered with interest. What kind of framework? We understand now that our approach to problem-solving appears threatening to other species, Stone continued. But instead of seeing this as a weakness to be contained, we propose seeing it as a strength to be shared. She activated a holographic display showing plans for joint research stations. Imagine combining human adaptability with crystalline computational power, Zephyrian discipline, and gaseous collective distributed processing. Together, we could solve problems that none of us could handle alone. Commander Vextal leaned forward with interest. You propose integration rather than isolation? We propose partnership, Stone replied. Humans work best when we have challenges to solve and people to help. Give us problems that seem impossible, and let us work alongside your best minds to find solutions. Elder Zexamore spoke from his position at the head of the tribunal. The ancient observers find this proposal intriguing. But how do we ensure that human adaptability serves the galaxy rather than replacing it? Jake stood up, carrying his toolkit. Can I show you something? He walked to the center of the room where a complex engineering problem had been set up for demonstration. The task involved repairing a multi-species life support system that combined technologies from 4 different civilizations. Each component required different approaches and specialized knowledge. I can't solve this alone, Jake admitted. Human tools and thinking can help, but I need alien expertise to understand how these systems work. He began by examining the crystalline computational matrix that controlled the system. Dr. Velanara, this crystal formation is beyond my understanding. How does information flow through these pathways? The crystalline prosecutor moved closer, her earlier hostility replaced by professional interest. The data moves through harmonic resonance patterns. Each crystal vibrates at specific frequencies to process different types of information. Jake nodded and picked up his small hammer. So, if I need to adjust the resonance, I can't just hit it. I need to know exactly where and how hard to create the right frequency change. Precisely, Velanara said. The impact must be calibrated to the crystal's natural harmonic structure. Working together, they carefully adjusted the crystal matrix. Jake's hammer provided the physical force, but Velanara's knowledge guided each precise tap. The combination of human tools and alien expertise achieved what neither could have accomplished alone. Next, Jake examined the gaseous collective's atmospheric processing unit. Ambassador Zekmar, this system is completely alien to me. How do I repair something that exists as organized gas? The electronic voice crackled with what might have been amusement. You cannot touch our components directly, but you can modify the containment fields that shape our consciousness. Jake used his screwdriver to adjust electromagnetic field generators while Zekmar provided guidance on the proper field patterns. The human tool became an extension of gaseous alien expertise. The Zephyrian power distribution system required different skills. Commander Vextal explained the warrior philosophy behind their engineering. Our systems are built for strength and honor. Each connection must be secure enough to withstand battle conditions. Jake applied Zephyrian standards of durability while using human flexibility to solve connection problems. His pliers and wire cutters worked under Vextal's supervision to create joints that met warrior-grade specifications. The insectoid hive components presented the greatest challenge. Queen Vexara's compound eyes studied the delicate biomechanical interfaces. Our technology grows rather than being built. Your metal tools could damage the living components. Jake examined the problem carefully. Then I need to work with the growth patterns, not against them. He used his knife to carefully trim overgrown biocables, following the natural grain of the organic material. The Queen guided each cut to avoid damaging the living systems. After 2 hours of collaborative work, the multi-species life support system hummed back to life. The repair had required human adaptability, crystalline precision, gaseous understanding, Zephyrian strength, and insectoid biological knowledge. This is what we're proposing, Ambassador Stone said as Jake packed his tools. Not human dominance, but human cooperation. We bring our problem-solving approach, and you bring your specialized knowledge. Dr. Helen Murphy stepped forward with additional data. Our studies show that mixed human-alien teams consistently outperform single-species groups. Human adaptability helps other species think beyond their normal limitations. Commander Vextal nodded slowly. The human refused to accept that the repair was impossible. His persistence forced us all to find new approaches. But he could not have succeeded without our knowledge, Velanara added. Human tools become truly powerful only when guided by proper understanding. Queen Vex _Era's antennae twitched thoughtfully. Perhaps the danger we feared was not human weapons, but human isolation. A species that solves problems alone might indeed transcend the need for community. Elder Zaxamor's ancient voice filled the room. The ancient observers have reached a decision. We vote to not only maintain human membership in the Galactic Council, but to expand their role. Let humans serve as problem solvers and bridge builders between species. The formal vote that followed was closer than Jake had hoped, but humanity prevailed. 7 species voted for the new partnership framework. 4 voted for limited human involvement, and only 1 voted for complete isolation. Ambassador Stone announced the new cooperation protocols. Human engineers will be assigned to integrated teams on exploration vessels, research stations, and colony worlds. Will work together to solve the galaxy's greatest challenges. The ceremony concluded with a symbolic gesture. Jake's toolkit was placed in a special display case in the station's main hall, with inscriptions in 12 different languages explaining the peaceful purpose of each tool. The hammer was labeled as a tool for shaping and repair. The screwdriver became an instrument for connection and assembly. 6 months later, Jake found himself aboard the joint exploration vessel Unity, working alongside Zephyrian engineer Kilthan, the same alien who had first discovered his toolkit. The former enemies had become close partners, combining human creativity with Zephyrian precision. They were exploring a region of space that had been declared impossible to navigate due to gravitational anomalies and energy storms. 3 previous expeditions had failed to map the area safely. The gravitational shears would crush any normal ship, Kilthan said, studying the sensor readings with his 4 arms working multiple control panels. Jake examined the data with human eyes that saw solutions where others saw only problems. What if we don't fight the gravitational forces? What if we use them? Working together, they developed a new navigation technique that rode the gravitational waves instead of opposing them. The ship surfed through the dangerous region like a leaf on a stream, mapping previously unexplored star systems. Your grandfather's hammer, Kilthan said as they completed their survey. It is displayed in our ship's common area. My offspring asks many questions about human tools. Jake smiled. Tell them the same thing my grandfather told me. Every tool is only as good as the mind that guides it, and every problem has a solution if you're willing to keep looking. The Unity continued its mission, carrying humans and aliens together into the unknown. Jake's simple toolkit had nearly caused a galactic war, but in the end, it became a symbol of cooperation that would reshape the galaxy's future. Behind them, other ships followed similar paths, carrying mixed crews to worlds that had seemed unreachable. The human gift for seeing solutions was spreading throughout the galaxy, not as a weapon of conquest, but as a tool for bringing different species together in pursuit of common goals. Jake's grandfather would have been proud.